And I realized it's never going to be the same unless you're going to be a rock star or something, which is not happening. I went to high school and I also played collegiate tennis, which is unusual a little bit in the tennis world. There are a lot of the athletes go to college maybe for a year or two and then go on to play pro. But I finished my 4 years of college, got my degree, and then went pro at 23 years of age. And I was very lucky to have a very long career. I played professional tennis for 16 years, was very lucky as far as not having many injuries, and was also very lucky that I got to play for my country, both for Fed Cup, which is now called Billie Jean King Cup, and to represent the USA at the Olympics. I retired in 2013, and I had a little bit of a problem deciding if I was ready to be finished or not, because it was obviously something I was very passionate about and that I loved. And I was having this sort of inner debate with myself, because I got to the point where I always loved training and loved the competition, but it started to become loving the training and the competition sort of starting to feel a little bit overwhelming and stressful. And it was my coach at the time that recognized, look, I think you're starting to not love the competition as much as you were used to. So yes, it was my choice, but I had a hard time with that choice. And when it came time to decide, it took me a while to get to the place to accept it. But once it happened, there were a lot of tears because I didn't want it to end. But I knew at the time it was the right decision. But I was very lucky that I finished on my own terms, no injuries and nothing like that. Right when I made the choice, I wouldn't say right away it was a challenge, because I retired at the US Open, which is in September for tennis in New York. And our calendar year ends in November. So it was kind of like no one was playing anyway. And then once the tour started again, I think in January in Australia, and I wasn't there, that was a very strange feeling to me. That's when it sort of started to probably, I would say, hurt a little bit. In tennis, you're thrown in this little bubble, I'm sure, as for a lot of other sports. And I just felt like that was my community. That was my little bubble. And then all of a sudden I'm thrown into this world that people would talk to me about tennis, but I didn't necessarily feel like they understood that world. So it's tough to relate to people in the beginning. But I was very lucky that I got a lot of good advice from other tennis players that had retired already. But one guy said, you have to give it 3 years. And I was thinking, 3 years, that's way too long. Like, I have to do something. But sure enough, he also mentioned, like, just, throw yourself in different things. Start saying yes to whatever opportunities come up. And that sort of gave me a little bit of freedom to try new things. And it made me see things differently, that I can take this time to explore myself and try and find this new identity that I'm trying to deal with. But it was definitely tough for me. I did try coaching a couple young teenagers on the women's side, and helped a group of young girls also with the United States Tennis Association. And that was one of the things I didn't think I wanted to do, but unless you try it, you never know. So I tried it a few times and I liked it, but it wasn't my full passion, I would say. And, I did other little things like artistic stuff. And then I was sitting having lunch with my boyfriend, and we were sitting in an outdoor cafe, and I saw a sign that said chocolatier classes. And I was like, well, I'm supposed to say yes to everything. So I go in and meet this French master. I said, can I sign up? And he said, well, it's only for people that are really in the industry already, but we can't fill this last spot. So if you want to come. And I was like, okay. And I didn't know anything that they were talking about, but I gave it a go and I dove in, and everyone was nice. Everyone in the class helped me. And then I kept experimenting at home. And to make it short, now I have a chocolate business. I had a great support team, which is always important, I think, as an athlete, especially in an individual sport, when you're traveling the world week in and week out. And it can feel very lonely at times, because not only in the beginning when you're maybe trying to fund yourself, you don't have a lot of, income coming in the beginning. My family was always really supportive, and the way I grew up too, I went to high school, a normal high school, where a lot of tennis players don't. They start at such a young age, and tennis is all they know. But I think from that perspective, I had balance right away as far as trying to manage studies in high school and tennis, and then also in college, the same situation. And I stress that a lot when I talk to other parents and athletes and stuff like that, how much it is to have other interests, that your mind doesn't have to be so on the sport all the time, because that can get overwhelming. So I think from a very young age, I had that balance, and I played a lot of other sports as well, which I think was a huge impact on me. One thing that I say a lot that was a huge eye-opener was when you're in competition, playing in front of thousands of people or performing in front of thousands of people, that sort of excitement and adrenaline you get, and I'm feeling it now just thinking back, that was something I really missed. And I realized in the beginning why I was struggling was that I was trying to recreate that and what I was going to do next. And it wasn't until I got to the point where, like, I'm never going to recreate that. Maybe I'll be excited about something else, but it's going to be a different feeling. And I was trying to search for that same feeling. I think it helped me kind of move along to that next phase, to be open to other things. After the US Open, I remember getting up for the next 2 months, showering, putting on my athletic gear to go train, and then realized I had nowhere to go. And that was a really weird feeling. And then I sort of got lost and didn't know what to do with my day. So mentally having to adjust to be to figure out that stuff and be okay with you don't have to do anything right now. You don't have to go train for hours on end. That was difficult. As far as a physical change in my body, literally physically, I didn't necessarily felt the difference, other than the fact that, I mean, this is probably minuscule, but I got full faster. My normal breakfast, I ate half of it. And I was it's because I wasn't on the court for 6 hours a day. But like I told you in the beginning, I always loved training. So I always had to wake up and do something. So I always liked that movement and physicality. And so for me, that didn't change that much. I just did a lot less. I absolutely love it. I mean, I went to go visit a friend of mine in Arizona, another tennis player, and she retired a couple years before I did. And I was so excited about my tennis racket. She looked at me, she's like, "Are you crazy?" She's like, "I don't want to see a tennis racket." And that made me sad, actually, because you devote so much of your time to the sport. But I love it to the point where I still hit with my former coach, who's now my boyfriend. But I want to do the drilling. I want to run side to side on the court, do the corner drill, and then come up and hit the ball for a winner. Yeah, no, I still thrive on that. Yeah, I love it. I mean, there was a moment after I graduated from college, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go pro. Because there was a stage in a year and a half where I wasn't loving it so much. And at that moment, I felt well, I always told myself I'd try going pro. And I regret it if I didn't. Luckily, I got connected with this coach, Raj, and he brought the fun back to the sport for me. And from that moment on, I just wanted to train all day long. I loved it. I think that's what's cool about learning from being a professional athlete, I think, is that you're going to fail so many times, but that could be the best thing for you at times, or the best times that you can learn. And so going into that situation, I didn't even think that way, because I think you put yourself in those situations so often throughout your professional athletic career that I didn't even think that it was a challenge. It was just okay, let's do it. And you find ways, right? You find ways to deal with those challenges. And even with starting the business, I mean, it's a pretty big endeavor to try and dive in and start your own business. But again, I didn't even think that way, because you're enjoying it and you just want to give it a go and you just want to try it. And if it doesn't work out, you find a way. main job is now I'm a sports broadcaster for tennis, of course. So I do a lot of commentating throughout the year for tennis events. And also I'm a reporter, so do a lot of interviews with the tennis players, coaches, physios. So pretty much try and get background stories so people can relate to the characters of the athletes and the coaches a little bit more and learn about them. Everyone knows they're amazing tennis players, but I want them to know personally these people because I think everyone has a great story. So I enjoy that role a lot, is being able to pull that out of the athletes and get to know them a little bit better so people can relate to them. Try and obviously critique and analyze what's happening in the actual match that's being played, but I think also to try and educate the viewer to understand that, you know, what they're doing out there is not easy. And I think I try and explain that a little bit so people understand, like, you know, it's not just hitting the ball, it's dealing with the pressure, the stress, factors that are happening outside, all the training that's happened, the dedication, the sacrifices. And I feel like I try my best to bring that perspective. Sometimes it can be difficult explaining it in just like an hour-and-a-half match, but I hope I can convey that message a little bit at least. It's definitely brought a different perspective because now I see what maybe I could have done a little bit differently, or maybe I could have listened to my coach a little bit better at times, which I could have learned, I think. And if I look back on my career, which I could have incorporated a little bit better, is that it's not all on this one moment. It's okay to be okay not playing your best and just being able to get through those moments. I think I put a little bit too much stress on myself every moment to like be perfect or do the best I can, and it's not going to be the best every single time. I can see that now when I watch some of the young tennis players coming up, like how much maybe they're emphasizing that moment a little bit too much, and instead of having like maybe the broader perspective. I mean, it's great you hear a lot of tennis players say it's about the process, which it is. And I do hope they really connect with that, because that is one of the most important things. Is it's not just about that exact moment, it's about progressing. Definitely passion and fun. I think you have to have fun. If you're not having fun, then I feel like that can be detrimental to you sometimes. I mean, you got to enjoy it, and you have to enjoy the struggling part of it, you know, and I think that's what a lot of some of the best tennis players say is, you know, enjoy that struggle. And if you can get to that place, that's huge. But love being out there and love what you do. And I think in tennis in particular, which I think is starting to change, is I saw so many of the youngsters, you know, put so much pressure on themselves if they didn't feel like they were performing well enough when they're like 18, 19. And I'm just like, you don't have to be top 10, top 20 and 19. If you can do it, it's great, but it's okay if you're not there at that moment. I think you do have time. Like, I'm constantly trying to learn about something. And so I take advantage of still being able to take that advice of trying new things or learning about new things. And it helps that I'm still involved in tennis as far as commentating, because I love sports so much, because not only how much I love the competition and being an athlete, but how much sport teaches you about life in general, about failure, succeeding, you know, working as a team, everything, dedication, sacrifice. And I just connect with sports like that so much, even when I watch other sports on television. And I think the fact that I love that I'm still involved in sports because of how much it brought to my life and how much I appreciate it. So that helps my balance too, being a part of that, and also feeding the other interests that I have. There's another tennis player there was a guy who's like top 20 in the world, and we had this conversation all the time, because I would go and help hit with his kids. He had an academy, and he asked me to speak in front of the kids. He said, in 16 years, like how many times in your 16-year career do you feel like you played absolutely incredibly perfect? And in 16 years, I said maybe 6 times. And when he had the same 16, 17-year career, and he said less than 5. So I wish I would have connected that a little bit more, and being okay that doesn't have to be perfect every time. Like I was always trying to make everything like I was a perfectionist, because most athletes are. But I wish I could have let that go a little bit more. I think people can relate to a lot of people and realize that there's so many situations that are similar in life, and I think that's what draws people to watch sports and connect with these athletes.